Her topic is gender assessment on national lawmaking mechanisms in Southeast Asian countries. The second speaker is Mien Versosa, Executive Director of the Philippine Commission on Women. Yung nickname pala ay Mien. A commissioner at the then National Commission of Women said, Executive Director. No. I mean, a commissioner said ang nickname ay Mien. And then, Mien earned Masters of Science in Social Policy and Planning in London School of Economics and Political Science. She also has a Master of Science in Nutrition at the University of the Philippines. And then in 2012, she received a Distinguished Alumni Award in Gender Equality and Women Empowerment. Okay. The third speaker is Supatra Putana Nosorn, who's head of UN Women Thailand, the national program officer. She has a master's degree on development studies of the Women and Development from the Institute of Social Studies at the Netherlands, and she spent 25 years working with the government, including the UN Women work. She had 9 years with UNIFEM and UN Women under CEDAW Southeast Asia program. So we start with Sok. Dr. Sok, right?
Oh, thank you very much, Bing. And maayong hapon sa inyong lahat. And for my Muslim sisters, Assalamu alaikum. First, I'd like to thank the Mindanao Commission for Women and UN Women, both here in the Philippines and the regional office, for this opportunity to share with you the findings of a regional study that I made late last year on national lawmaking mechanisms and processes in selected Southeast Asian countries. And some of you who are here were actually involved in this study, because I went to all the 6 Southeast Asian countries, namely Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Timor-Leste, Indonesia, Thailand, and of course also the Philippines. So most of you were involved, but I never got the chance to really share with you the findings of this study. So this is a great opportunity to now present to you the findings, and also because you're having your what are you having? Your strategic planning, DIPA, for the CEDAW program. So this will also be inputs for that strategic session that you are having. And I'd like to say at the outset that this study is not just for the 7 Southeast Asian countries, but also very relevant to the topic that you have today, which is on improving women's human rights in Mindanao. If CEDAW is looking, if the CEDAW program of UN Women is looking at new program entry points, it will be providing good inputs. Okay? So let me tell you first the outline of this presentation. We'll have 6 parts. I have 20 minutes, Bing. And of course, I'll share with you the scope, objectives, and methodology of the study, the summary of findings, the entry points for UN Women, both in the region and particularly here in Mindanao, and then something on cultivating gender champions, the dynamics of the political environment, and the conclusions. I know it's 1:30, and this is really a very, very challenging time to present anything on research. This is the last thing that you are going to be interested in after a very good lunch. So I'll try to make it as lively as possible. I have always said that there are only three things that sustain me now that I'm back in the Philippines. One is my Zen, which means being present to the moment. Don't think of any other place but now, okay? So you look at me. Oh, this is being live streamed. No? Oh my God. So I should be very careful. You know, somebody told me when Sok has the mic, you never know what she will say. But now I keep in mind it's live streaming. So not only should I look pretty, if I don't look pretty there, please remove it. Because the world is watching how a woman is aging. No? So it better be good. I should give growing old a whole new meaning. Huh? So, and then second, of course, is my faith. That, you know, when things go wrong, you always say, oh, there is somebody who will help me. And the third is my sense of humor. I can't imagine life without a sense of humor. And I'm sure you too, no? How can life be if you're that serious? You're just sitting there and standing here, and then you're all looking at whatever you're doing. You're doing your Facebook, you're doing your email, you're doing your texting, no? These are things that distract. I know of this because I do it, especially when the speaker is boring, no? And my favorite, of course, is to look at the Facebook of my granddaughters. I have one's 14 and 6, and I keep on, you know, I keep on looking at their photos. I keep on sending them photos. I saw a stall here which says, mga apo ni Lola. For my non-Tagalog-speaking friends, this means granddaughters of the grandmother. So I sent it to them and I said, hey guys, you're here. And so, those three things. So we'll try to make this as lively as possible because this is such a dull topic, no? Lawmaking and processes. And then there's a colon and Inday. You made me think about this title because you said if there's a colon, it means that it doesn't really know what it's talking about, no? No, that's not what she said. I'm paraphrasing her. Okay, so what did I do during those, you know, I did this for 3 months, you know, and it was quite interesting. So I did a gender assessment of legislative mechanisms and processes in 7 countries. You see, now that I've reclaimed my right to my own time, I have time to reflect. And I said, well, why am I so interested in legislative structures, in legislative processes? You'll see, I am not a legislator, but I'm very interested in legislative work. I'm not a politician, but I love politics. And Evelyn Ursua promised to make me win as the next president of the Philippines. So I'm holding her responsible for that. And I'm very, very grateful, by the way, that I was welcomed back warmly in the Philippines. You know, these people, these women who are here, they were my friends when we were much, much younger. No? So I'm very, very grateful that I made the right decision to come back, even if my family, my granddaughters are in the U.S., that I decided to come back. And what did I come back to? Pork barrel. Can you imagine that, huh? Pork barrel. What else did I come back to? Pidaf, DAP, and everything else. No? So and it's no longer just fun in the Philippines, it's more funds in the Philippines. No? Okay. My objective in this study, nininervyos na si Mian said, oh, we lack time. This is the privilege of you know, being the first. You can talk and talk, and then you make the next one nervous, no? Because then they don't have time anymore, you know. Okay, so my second objective, just relax, Mian. Mian will entertain you too because she has video in her presentation. And I told her, hey, Mian, if you really, you know, in the Philippines you say patalbugan, if you like edge me out with your cartoons, I will dance. And that will be live streamed, so I'll be more entertaining. Anyway, just relax. You be present to the moment. To identify, my objective was to identify the most strategic institution or mechanism to target UN Women's capacity development support for CEDAW-based assessment of legislation. And what methods did I use? Oh,
60 viewers.
60.
You have 60 viewers.
Viewing me right now.
I am threatening you. You
Right
have
now?
60 viewers.
60. They're viewing me right now. You know, but I'm sure I will not have viewers in the US because right now it's 1:30 in the morning there. So I can say anything and my granddaughters will not be embarrassed. Unless you put it on YouTube, in which case there will be a replay. Okay. I used a combination of desk review and on-site interviews. And I said I went to all the countries, so, you know, many of you were very helpful. Okay, so what's next? I'll give you first a quick summary of the findings of the study, and then try to go through it very quickly so that Mian will not get nervous. You know, I've been through this, so it's, you know, it's really good that somebody else is experiencing what I experienced now. I'll be very quick. Because we are good friends, no? She is a good friend of my brother before me, so. Okay, so what are my findings? And number one is that the general capacity for developing and reviewing legislation from a CEDAW or women's human rights perspective in the CEDAW SIP countries needs improvement. That's being politically correct. Actually, what I wanted to say is that it is very low and weak. Not very, it's low and weak. But of course, you have to be politically correct. So I said needs improvement. But that will be in the live stream. Next, some countries have gender action groups, focal point centers, but no institutionalized or sustained programs for capacity development and women's human rights compliant bill drafting. No? No institutionalized. Sa atin, we say pache-pache. No? That they don't understand pache-pache. Bits and pieces. It doesn't sound good. No? Next is, in the majority of the countries, it is the NGOs that have provided training, conducted research, or organized advocacy for CEDAW-compliant legislation. And fourth, there is a lack of institutionalized process for CEDAW-based gender assessment of legislation in the legislature or the executive branches. And I said legislature or the executive because not all of us have the same political system. Some have presidential systems like the Philippines, but many of the countries in Southeast Asia have the parliamentary system, no? Or a mix of the parliamentary and presidential. So I say legislature, executive. So what I'm saying is that for CEDAW, for the CEDAW regional program, you know, you've got to pay attention to the way that bills are drafted, the way they move through the legislative mill, not just the laws. Now, we keep on talking about the laws, but how they are made. There's very, very weak, you know, emphasis on that. Next. Okay, so what I will do is, of these 4 findings, I'll try to explain each, okay? The first is about general capacity. I don't intend to flatter the Philippines, Mien, but with the Philippines, with the exception of the Philippines, the general capacity for developing and reviewing legislation, I said, is low and weak. So here in the Philippines, we're good. We're good at CEDAW. But, you know, the Philippines is good at so many things, no? But we are still quite, you know, behind when it comes to showing results, no? But you want CEDAW? Oh, we eat CEDAW for lunch, breakfast, and dinner in the Philippines. We know it very well. You want CEDAW experts? Diba? Most of the consultants come from the Philippines. You want CEDAW training? The Philippines. You want CEDAW, the Philippines. You want a country where CEDAW is not implemented? That's the Philippines too. See? So we're very good. We're actually very good. And we attribute this to the effective collaboration of a CEDAW-focused Philippine Commission for Women. A good advertisement for you, huh? The House Committee on Women and Gender Equality, and a number of university-based and NGO CEDAW experts. And you have the CEDAW experts are here, no? Yeah, this attorney Evelyn Ursua is a world-renowned CEDAW expert. Hey, Evelyn, this is a live stream. You owe this to me. Okay, next. Oh, sorry. Okay, there are gender mainstreaming groups and focal point centers, not only in the Philippines, but in many other countries in Southeast Asia. Cambodia's Ministry of Women Affairs is very good. I mean, I know the MOA minister there, and it's really a priority. In fact, you have gender mainstreaming action groups, no? My friends from Cambodia, called the GMAGs. And anywhere you go, there's a GMAG, and that's good. Then, of course, you have the PCW. Then in Vietnam, you have the Training Center for Elected Representatives of the National Assembly. Right, Toy? No? You have this, and also supported by UN Women. Timor-Leste, there's the Center for Capacity Building and Information and Gender Equality and the Legal Training Center. But the question is, are there institutionalized programs? See, you know, I'm old, I know that, no? And, you know, these days, I'm no longer impressed by activities because I did that, you know, a lot when I was doing this work. Well, always my question now is, so what? So what if you did the training? So what if you did the research? So what if you took photos? No? Of course, it's good because you're now in live stream, but the so what, the results. That's always what we have to, that's what I look for now, the results. No? My years are getting fewer and fewer. I better show results, no? So that I'll have a good passport to heaven. Next is, okay, I said that it's the NGOs. You know, in the Philippines now, the NGOs have a bad name now, no? Because those of you who do not know yet what is happening in my country, the NGOs are now, when you say about the NGOs, the legislators duck. Because there are fake NGOs that have been used, misused, and abused. But there are NGOs that have engaged in training, research, and advocacy for CEDAW. And actually, they do the work, aside from, of course, agencies like what I've mentioned already. So in Indonesia, there's the CEDAW working group in Indonesia. Are there Indonesian participants here? Oh, they're not here. Not here. Oh, arriving tonight. Oh my God, they missed this very important presentation. But anyway, but anyway, I have actually the study, no, that I will give to Deepa. Actually, they have it. Actually, UN Women has it. But I don't know why they're not publishing it. I think because I said so many things there that should not be said. So, but maybe after a little, you know how it is. It's got to be, it's got to be what? Internet friendly, you know, which means you sanitize. Then Laos, there is the Gender Development Association that also does training, research, and advocacy. The Philippines, hey, Evelyn, this is another free advertisement for you. The Women's Legal Bureau, you have new name, no? Women's Human Rights and Legal Bureau, which she founded. Evelyn is a very, outstanding. No, she's very embarrassed, never mind. Then Filipina, then the Women and Gender Institute, the UP Center for Women's Studies. Oh, yes, sorry, but it's only now that I'm getting to know more and more of Mindanao. Thanks to my friend Inday. Inday Santiago is wholly responsible for my being in Mindanao. She thought it's a good idea to bring me here, you know? And I agree with her. So, yeah, but I'm getting to know more of Mindanao. Thank you. I know you're doing a job better than what the people in Manila are doing. Okay. And then you have Thailand, the Foundation for Women. Vietnam, you have the Center for Education, Promotion, and Empowerment of Women, no? The CEPW. And the Center for Studies in Applied Sciences in Gender, Family, Adolescence. There are so many of these NGOs doing good work in terms of research, training, and advocacy for CEDAW. But, as I said, we need institutionalized programs. We also need something that's sustainable. Not only those that are there because the donors are there. Hmm? It should be self-sustaining. Next. Oh, here is something. You know what I found out? I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong, then please correct me. You know, in my study of the 7 Southeast Asian countries, I did not find any committee in the legislature mandated to review all legislation from a gender perspective. None. In the Philippines, the Philippines, we're quite, pioneering in everything. But the committee on women gets the bills referred to it, no? And those are on gender. But even the reproductive health bill, it was to the Commission on Population, no? And then we were only invited there. But in Vietnam, no, Tuy, this is a source of pride for Vietnam, and I'm sure they are also watching, no? This is live streaming. In Vietnam, Article 47 of the Gender Equality Law provides for mandatory. You know, it's mandatory that the Committee on Social Affairs review all, not just legislation related to gender like we do here in the Philippines, from a gender perspective. There is a problem, of course, and that is there are only 5, no? When I was there, it was 5 gender experts. And how can you review all gender laws from a gender perspective? But at least there is a legal mandate. And also, I was there only recently, and the Ministry of Justice is now coming up with a memorandum about how the different ministries will have to review all legislation from a gender perspective and what to do. No? So Vietnam is, Vietnam has outpaced, the Philippines in many respects. Somebody told me, Vietnam has not only outpaced the Philippines in gender, but in everything else. Okay. Now, entry points for UN Women. I think this is what my inputs are to the strategic planning that you're going to have. First, see, when it comes to legislation, the entry point is not really in the drafting of the bill. The entry point is in the legislative agenda, in the formulation of the legislative agenda. So I was very happy that I got myself invited by Mien to this legislative agenda for women. No? So they didn't invite me. I got myself invited. But because Mien is a good, she's not listening. But anyway, Mien invited me finally because I told her, hey, you're having this legislative agenda, get me, So I showed up, But anyway, it's very good because that is where you should start in the legislative agenda. Dun pa lang, you have to, and I will repeat this when I go to the Bangsamoro Basic Law. So that is the entry point. So you have the prolegnas for Indonesia, and in Vietnam you have the law/ordinance development program. At that point, you already make clear that this is your agenda. Okay? Second is, there is where you develop the capacity of the drafters. And because this is a regional study, it's not just about the Philippines, but in other countries like Vietnam, for example, the bill drafters are in various ministries, but the Ministry of Justice is the one that really looks at all the bills drafted. So we should be able to, for CEDAW, for UN Women, also focus on this bill drafters. And of course, in the Philippines, we have the staff of our legislators plus the committees. That's also an entry point. Also get them. Of course, one would say, but there's very quick turnover. Never mind, if there's a quick turnover, they end up consultants anyway. So you better also pay attention to them. And then work with women parliamentarians caucuses. Because they are quite not really powerful, but it's a good entry point. In the Philippines, mukhang it's a social club rather than a parliament. Oh, the live stream. It can be improved. Yeah. So, we need a strong women parliamentarians caucus. Indonesia, for example. Oh, even Timor-Leste, no? But it's got to be, and parliamentarians caucus. And you know, my 2 cents worth is this. Don't just make it a women parliamentarians caucus. Make it a parliamentary caucus on women's issues so that you have women and men. Huh? Because we need the men partners for this endeavor also. And political parties, you know, I always keep on telling myself, hey, why are you so interested in politics, political parties? You're not even, you didn't even run for the barangay captain position, no? Because that's a very basic. Now I know why they are, you know, killing each other over running for this post. There's so much money there, no? I think I would have made more money working in the legislature than working in the UN, you know? I think I would have, you know, that I'm knowing now that they have millions and billions. If I worked with the Philippine Congress, I would have made more, huh? But anyway, I will burn in hell. And I cannot, you know, I don't want to. Okay, and then last is identify gender champions. I will go back to that. Ay, punyet. Ay. Live stream! Sorry, erase. Identify gender champions with deep personal and political commitment to gender equality and women's empowerment. Anyway, they didn't understand that. Okay. For Mindanao, because it's about Mindanao. So we should get... Okay, first is the Bangsamoro Basic Law. The Mindanao Commission of Women is doing hell of a lot for the Bangsamoro Basic Law. And we did have that seminar on if women were to write the Bangsamoro Basic Law, then these are the things that we have to... Yes. And, but you see now, what we have to do is focus on the Transition Commission. Because the Transition Commission is drafting the basic law. I think my job in that Bangsamoro Basic Law is legislative advocacy, but you see, legislative advocacy starts at the Transition Commission because they're drafting the basic law. It is at that point where you already have to flag that, number one, the electoral system that is friendly to women is not the electoral system that we have right now. The electoral system friendly to women is the proportional representation party list system that, for example, Cambodia has. But of course, one would say, but in Cambodia, there are not many women. But because that's a different story, which I will not say because it's live stream. Yeah? Okay, marami palang limitations ang live stream, no? Hindi ka tuloy makasalita masyado. Okay, so we have to do that. The electoral system that will work for women, and also the kind of political parties, because one will be choosing political parties, not individual candidates. The kind of political parties that we should have. Political parties that are gender responsive in terms of their structures, in terms of their processes, in terms of how decisions are made, in terms of how they choose candidates, and blah, blah, blah. Okay? So, and then next, SIDO in the Bangsamoro legislative structures and processes. You know, before I left the Philippines, I had the opportunity to work with being in the regional legislative, you're sleeping, in the regional legislative assembly of ARM. And we tried our very best, you know, to do, of course, skills, legislative drafting, legislative agenda, and all that stuff. But, you know, Bangsamoro will have a new legislature. Now, there is where, this is another entry point for SIDO, UN Women, or any other, SIDA, SIDO, whatever, you know, to look at legislative structures and processes. And like what legislative structures and processes are we talking about? The committee system. You know, because in the Philippines is presidential. So the committees will always be there. In parliamentary systems, committee systems self-destruct. After their job is done, then they're gone. But in the Philippines, because we're presidential, when we have the regional legislative assembly, the committees will say, the committees, I know that in the Philippines, we have a bad impression of committees because they investigate anything that moves, no? And then not come up with any legislation. But of course, now they're doing a good job investigating now pork barrel, no? And now they're doing it right now. That is on live stream too. So we have to look at that. Then SIDO in the electoral system, because there are electoral systems that are not SIDO-based. You know what we have, which is the single ballot plurality system, winner take all. That doesn't work for us, huh? It works if you are a member of a political family, no? That you are the wife, the mother, the daughter of this and that politician, because it doesn't really matter, no? What kind of electoral system there is. All that matters is, you know, the political loyalty of the people. But otherwise, it's not good. Then, pseudo in political party development, which I already mentioned. And then, because Mian might have a heart attack. Okay. There you go. Okay. This is what, I want to follow up with what Inday was saying earlier about capacity development, because capacity development seems to be the solution to everything. No? But that is not really the case, because what I see with capacity development is the more you give capacity development, the more they ask for it, because it is not enough, because it blah, blah, blah. But, you know, more than capacity development, I believe, and you have to believe me because I've worked on this for so many years, no? You've got to identify gender champions. Even if you develop the capacity of 2,000 people, and I know this, in UN Women, when I get reports from the field, what do they say? Oh, X number of people trained. They trained 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. So what? Yeah, that is the so what. So what were the results? But if instead of training 200, you train 20, but gender champions, the one who does not only have the brains but the heart, to really fight, no? To really advocate for women's rights, like all of us here are. That's more than enough. You don't need 200, no? So the task of the gender champions are, by the way, the gender champions are not just men, huh? Women, they're also men. Their tasks are sustained advocacy for the enactment of cutting-edge laws on gender that are pseudo-compliant. Well, that's a lot of blah, blah. We can explain that later. Systematic monitoring of the implementation of laws in the Philippines, and I will only stick with the Philippines. So many laws. Are they implemented? How do we know? We're not even monitoring the implementation, no? But now we know that there is so much money that is not used for implementation of laws, but used for something else. So there's got to be monitoring. And of course, sensitizing staff and management of their respective organizations to gender issues from a pseudo and women's human rights perspective. Now this, okay, this is another thing. Live stream, but never mind, no? You know, no matter how you develop capacity, no matter how many gender champions you have, if the political environment is not supportive, and not supportive for many reasons, then you're a dead duck, no? You have to transform that political environment. You know, the dynamics of the I cannot say many things here because you know how it is, but we can talk bilaterally about it. It's a political environment. You know, like some would say, oh, I am in favor of gender equality and women's empowerment. No political leader will not say that. No political leader will contradict that. But, you know, are the political values, culture, blah, 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 supportive? That's another thing. Or the dynamics. We know. We know that many political leaders who claim that they are for women's empowered and gender equality are wife beaters, no? We know that, and many others. Okay. The conclusion. Okay, so this is the second to the last slide, unless I decide to dance. What are the challenges in the gender assessment of legislation? Of course, there's the need for capacity development for assessment of legislation. No? Not just the laws, but the process, the structures, the need for government, civil society partnership, because civil society is doing it, doing the training, doing the capacity development, doing the advocacy. There has to be more of that kind of partnership. Identifying the institutional mechanism. Where will you start? You need an institutional mechanism. Let's face it, ministries, national women's machineries are generally weak. Generally weak. National women's machineries are generally under-resourced. National women's machineries don't have the status, don't have the authority. No, and the budget. We know that. It's like UN Women. UNIFEM before we became UN Women. Okay. I will tatapos ni. So, and then staffing and budgetary requirements, you know. When it comes to gender, no money, very little money. God, no, you have the 5%. Where are they spending the 5%? So I told Mian, let's evaluate where they are putting their money, no? Because laging walang pera. Oh, no money. But then, there's so many, now there's so much money being unearthed. And last, monitoring of implementation. It's got to be implemented, but you never know it's implemented unless you monitor. We pass laws and then we forget about it, no? Not good, huh? Oh, what is this? It's the last slide. So thank you, Terima kasih. Come on. Many, many thanks. Live stream it.
No, it's so nice to see Sok in such a new light. Because really, when we were inviting her for training for Popcorn People way back in the 1990s to talk on policy, she was really so serious. Yeah, and it's so refreshing to see her now making us all laugh and yet putting substance. Oh, diba? Let's give her a big round of applause. Now, I'm not sure if I can do a similar act of making you all laugh. But I have a video, which I hope you will enjoy. So I was asked to present or to share with you what we've been doing in terms of localizing the Magna Carta of Women and other challenges in SIDO. So what I'll do is just first run you over briefly of the content of Magna Carta of Women. Are all of you familiar with it? Huh? Anyway, I think a copy is in your kit. Okay. Okay. So Magna Carta was signed into law in 2009 with the IRR adopted in 2010. Of course, we had a lot of CSOs contributing to its formulation, including our sisters from Mindanao, and recognize, of course, that it was with support of then UNIFEM and Canada, then SIDA. I'm going to give you just the contents of the implementing rules and regulations, kasi localizing na tayo, di ba? Which it follows closely the content of the law itself. But the implementing rules talks about general provisions, etc., definition of terms, which is really repeating what is in the law, specifies duties related to human rights of women, specifying that the state as duty bearers and private sector, society in general, we're all responsible for making sure that the Magna Carta of Women is being implemented. So, hindi lang po kami sa gobyerno. Okay. But the state is the primary duty bearer who should respect, protect, fulfill. Mantra na natin yan. That's our mantra for human rights. And then, to be able for it to really be implemented, we have to formulate more laws, policies, regulatory instruments, administrative guidelines, etc., and establish mechanisms, as was mentioned earlier, institutional mechanisms for integrated and coherent implementation. The fourth rule specifies the human rights of all women. And you see, you name it, it's here. What should we take into consideration when we talk of human rights of women, protection from violence, disasters, which is usong-uso ngayon, participation and representation, equal treatment, education, the NGOs who have children into sports, women children said we should put in something about sports because there are disparities in scholarships and training for women in sports as well as prizes for women in sports. our contact persons from uniformed personnel said there were discriminatory issues that they had, so we have provisions for them. Media and film, health rights, special leave benefits. This is the most popular among working women because they can take special leave of 60 days for those who undergo surgery due to gynecological disorders. And the Department of Labor and the Commission on Civil Service Commission have guidelines for women to avail of that. Provisions on marriage and the family. And in the formulating the law, there was a time that they were saying, let's just have one Magna Carta of women. Because the versions then, there was a Magna Carta for rural women, right? Our friends from PKKK. They were actually the first ones pushing for Magna Carta for rural women. So, at the time, that's why there is this whole section on marginalized sectors. Because the rural women didn't want to budge in putting in their specific provisions into the Magna Carta. So, a whole, several sections addressing the rights of marginalized sectors, and you have them all here, including indigenous peoples, Moros, and all these others. Another whole section on institutional mechanisms to make sure that the Magna Carta of Women is implemented. It puts the PCW as mainly responsible, along with other key agencies, in using gender mainstreaming as a strategy. In DAI, where is in DAI? We will show you later that it still works. The gender, it can have results. In a few minutes, we will show you what results we have been finding. GAD focal points, planning and budgeting, GAD focal points in embassies and consulates to address issues of migrant women. Diba, recently, we have specific cases of labor attachés abusing women. PCW as oversight and monitoring. CHR as gender umbud, and I encourage everybody here in the Philippines to make use of that gender umbud role of the CHR by filing cases with them or showing them. Because if they don't have any cases to work on, then they should be functioning as a gender umbud. Monitoring, etc. Okay. Now, having the plan, how do we operationalize it? So, for the past 2 years now, participatory processes are usually very long. And we launched this in November 2011, the process of coming up with a women's empowerment, development, and gender equality plan. So, the EDGE, we have a women's EDGE. So, it is a parallel to the Philippine Development Plan. So it's, of course, the government has this PDP anchored on the President's social contract, 16 agenda items. So we looked into the gender perspectives and gender equality goals, women's empowerment goals across all the chapters under the PDP and added other chapters as well. And we're saying that this Women's EDGE plan will now be the basis for the agencies to formulate their GAD plans and budgets. Kasi nga, kuminsan, they don't know where to spend their GAD budgets on. So this is what they should be saying. But the guidelines that we've been issuing before has been telling them, follow CEDAW's concluding comments, follow Magna Carta of Women, now we're saying follow PPGD. Those who have been around, PPGD still around, it's a 30-year plan, 1995-2025. And this one is a time slice of the PPGD. Kung panahon ni GMA, Framework Plan for Women, now we are saying that we have a Women's EDGE plan. So we have like 20 chapters following the 5 key result areas of government. Women's economic empowerment would have such chapters, including agriculture for rural women. Social development rights and social protection would have these chapters. And take note of the vulnerable groups. We've identified women and girls with disabilities. They're very active now, usually unheard, but they're very strong CSO, PWD group, women in detention, senior citizens, and for the first time ever, I think, in any government document with a chapter on LGBTs. Okay? Very active groups as well inputting into this. A chapter on IP women and girls and Muslim women and girls. Now, about LGBT, it's already being accepted. No? In the recent Asia-Pacific Population Conference in early September, last month, this is the review of the ICPD, the Cairo Conference. We were able to successfully put into the outcome document at least 2 paragraphs mentioning that there should be no discrimination and violence against persons on account of sexual orientation and gender identity. It was a very hard battle. Iran and Russia and Malaysia were always saying no, 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 no. But at the end, they put it in the vote and the majority won. So it's there. It's something that we can use. Asia-Pacific Population Conference, sixth outcome document. Okay. We also have chapters on security, justice, and peace. So our violence against women advocacies would be under protection and access to justice. And then the peace and security, our actions on the National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security to implement UN CSR 1325, 1820, and all these other women and peace-related efforts are part of this. And then gender, environment, and climate change, of course, putting in gender into disaster risk reduction management. Gender responsive governance would be how many women should be in the civil service. So we're monitoring that in the Magna Carta, there should be 50-50 women in third-level positions, assistant director up to undersecretary. The current statistics is about 46%, a little less than 46%. Konti na lang. And then politics and governance. Siyempre, 6 na yung Senate. 6 women in Senate now. It's about 25%. Yeah, 6 women and increasing women are running for elective offices is what the statistic is. But of course, yung iba benchwarmer, di ba? Culture, the arts, and popular media is another one. And then implementation. Let me show you 3 examples of what is in the plan. For the Muslim women and girls, for example, these were inputs from Manisa Ulhaq and all the other people that we consulted. Women and girls experience gender equalities brought about by armed conflict, traditional cultural practices, to early, forced, and polygamous marriages, elopement, and abduction, as discussed by Attorney Liza earlier. Victims of gender-based violence, discrimination in school and workplaces, like wearing the hijab, for example, and limited participation. And the example of a strategy, as discussed earlier, is to really advocate for the amendment of the CMPL. Diba? But the target would be completion of a policy paper. Muna. So we have to have all the evidences before we actually lobby for its passage and baseline survey. Okay? So it's really not having it passed by 2016 because we know it will not happen at this point. For peace and security, women and girls vulnerable to gender-based violence and displacement, support systems and responses for women and girls in conflict and post-conflict areas are inadequate. Inadequate capacities of national government agencies to establish and implement mechanisms for addressing gender equality dimensions of peace. So PCW is working very closely with OPAP because we are part of the National Steering Committee along with all these other agencies here to ensure that the National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security is actually implemented and localized. So there are pamana areas, identified conflict areas in the Philippines where PCW will provide training on GAD planning and budgeting so they can use their GAD budget for peace efforts, and OPAP will take care of the peace part in training the selected LGUs. So that's a concrete example of how we are localizing this. Okay. For indigenous women and girls, very difficult because there's no baseline, no? Baseline data on indigenous people. See, where's by era? Meron. Cultural practices of IP women and children from achieving their full human rights, as cultural practices prevent women from achieving their full human rights, and that there's the usual conflict between customary laws and national laws in the justice system, ownership and inheritance of land held by men, and it's sometimes difficult because it's communal, so how do you disaggregate if you want to determine how many IP women own land, di ba? Parang, kasi communal siya. So that's something that how do we deal with such kinds of issues? Limited opportunities to participate in decision making. So one example, these are just examples, no, Mahab, the long list of what to do would be harmonizing, for example, customary laws. And hopefully by the target, we complete a review of laws. So, would you want to work on this too? Laws, policies, because you want... include in your review of laws also about customary practices. Okay? So the 20 chapters, no? So I'm not going to go through the entire Women's Edge. Yesterday, we presented it to the NEDA Social Development Technical Board, and they appreciated it, and they appreciated it, and they appreciated it, and they appreciated it, even went beyond the PDP, meant to go beyond the PDP, the Philippine Development Plan, because it just shows directions, and sectoral plans should really be as detailed so that it can be measured. Okay, so hopefully we will present to the Cabinet next month, or I don't know, whenever they will next meet, and have it finally approved. So what are the other efforts that we're doing to localize the Magna Carta? At the national level, because we are policy making, we don't provide direct services. We have limited budget, human resources, financial resources. Our budget's 50 million. How many did Napoles get? 50 million a year. And we want to influence the entire Philippines, right? The entire bureaucracy. So we have very limited capacity, and that's why we rely on partnerships like this that we are developing now. But nevertheless, we have issued all these policies on God planning and budgeting. We've done training. Irene, yes, walang sawang capacity development. Forever and ever. We saw that we train an agency, but, you know, people change. They get moved, and they get promoted, and they go to the UN, and they go to ADB, and so we have constantly trained people. It's a never-ending task. But buti na lang, they take Amanda gender advocacy wherever they move. They take it with them and hopefully spread it wherever they go. GAD initiatives, so we've had caravans on 18-day campaign, Women's Month, etc. We're now developing our National Gender Resource Program or Gender Resource Pool, where we will update and strengthen and level off our knowledge and understanding on gender mainstreaming, gender planning, budgeting, because the demand is really big, especially for national government agencies and LGUs, and we cannot meet the demand. So we need all of you here to be part of this pool, but we will have to have your, review your credentials. Ouch! Hindi. Oo. Siyempre, dapat may leveling off, di ba? We have the same core messages. And of course, we have this peer learning of how to bring this to the clients. The COA is very active. So in implementing the GAD budget policy, our national government agencies as well as LGUs are always scared to get their audit memo that they're not using the GAD budget properly. So we're working very closely with our Commission on Audit. We have the wedge plan, our priority legislative agenda, which includes those mentioned in the Magna Carta to be a priority. And we've launched a Gantimpala. This is an incentive system for national government agencies for this year. We are selecting those who have had outstanding achievements in doing their gender work to be awarded in March. For local, we have the local, this JMC 2013-1 is actually called Localizing the Magna Carta of Women, which tells LGUs how to set up their GAD focal point systems, how to formulate their GAD codes, and how to do GAD planning and budgeting. And we have pilot LGUs in our foreign-assisted projects from Canada as well as from Spanish cooperation. And we are going to call governors together into a summit sometime in November, again, to orient them and be supportive of all this work. What do we want to achieve? So this is our results framework. Women's empowerment and gender equality along social, economic, and political. We need, at the intermediate level, women benefit. We want to see women benefiting from gender-responsive PPAs, as we call it, in government programs, projects, and activities. And national government formulate plans. So how do we do it? Through enabling mechanisms, capacity building, consultations with constituents and CSOs, NGOs, and policies. Now, what I want to show you now is one good practice, which is about grade. So, ito na. Saan nga ba? Ito raw. So we had Women's Economic Empowerment Forum recently. It's like a graduation, ano? Because our SIDA, our Canada assisted gender-responsive economic actions for the transformation of women. That's what GREAT stands for, Great Women Project, which is actually a governance project to ensure that we create an enabling environment for women's economic empowerment, is ending in November. So we brought together all our partners and we prepared these brief videos to concisely show what we have done. There are actually 5 or 6, but I'll only show you 2. But if you like, I can show you all. They're just 2 or 3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes each. So, ito. Kasi, di ba, we talk of human rights. Kung minsan human rights, they always connect it with violence against women or peace. Ay, where's the sound? No. And where's the... Anyway, so, what was I saying? We partnered with national government agencies in charge of economic activities like the Department of Trade. Yeah. The next one is really the overview of the Great Women Project and show metrics. Great. You like the music? I think that's borrowed from Girl Effect. If you Google the Girl Effect, it has a lot of issues. Yeah, ganon. So, when we were doing this, we didn't expect to be able to see such kinds of results because as PCW, we were only, our main client is government. No? We don't directly go to the women micro-entrepreneurs. But by the capacity building that we did to government, the national level, at LGU level, the LGUs themselves were the ones who looked for these women's groups. And then so we broke barriers in DAI. We broke the silence of women because if you look at the profiles, I have others. Sorry, napakan ko yung ano. Ay, teka, nasan ba to? While we were working with them, we have other we have other slides or videos which show how the women were actually empowered. Then we interviewed the women and they said, like, now I can buy, I can contribute, I can buy, I can pay for electricity. My husband respects me more. Kasi syempre we asked if gender relations changed inside the home. I'm not being beaten up anymore by my husband. Because I am economically empowered, I bring money. So it's really important, no? Very difficult. There's so many programs in government offering livelihood, offering training, but what we are saying is that these government agencies should converge their efforts towards a particular target group. You can't just go and give 10,000 pesos and leave, or go train on beauty culture or cosmetics or dressmaking and leave, which is what government agencies usually do, both at the local level or national level. So we really force them to get their acts together. At the national government, they have so many tools. There's also an environment component here. Like there's a story of crab paste making, so the Department of Agriculture came in to make sure that the crabs will continue to proliferate, so they continue to make the tabanan talangka, or crab paste, which is being sold produced in Kamsur and sold to Pampanga. Yon. The other element which was not clearly featured here, but is in one of these videos, if there's time, we can show them in between, no? Is partnering with the private sector. So we partnered with EcoC Foundation, which runs EcoStore for high-end markets, and they brought in designers and food connoisseurs and tested over 1,000 products of women. About 40 of them passed. They suggested how to improve their products so that they can be marketable. So that's the very important aspect towards the end of this project. And hopefully with grade 2, post-grade, which we are negotiating now with Canada, there will be more of that effort of private sector partnerships to really bring in, raise the level, scale up the efforts of women involved in microenterprises. So this is the, what's this? This is the usual diagram that we present when we discuss what GREAT is about, partnering with NGOs, national government agencies. You all know the entry points for gender mainstreaming, involving people, policies, influencing policies and plans, programs, and creating enabling mechanisms, and doing a lot of capacity development and partnership building, which is really going around like a circle. The approach and entry point for we. Challenges now. The challenges and lessons in localizing the Magna Carta. In almost 20 years, no, of gender mainstreaming, we started this in early 90s, the Philippines. Again, a pioneer in gender mainstreaming in the late 80s, early 90s. Early 90s were the first books. Well, we had all these concepts, no? But it's very hard to sell if you talk gender right away, right? But if you go and identify a specific entry point like economic empowerment, mayors and governors, they like it when you say improve their economy, livelihood, economic, solve the poor. Or you may enter through health. And now, disaster risk, we should take the opportunity. There is a law which says God-focal persons in LGU should sit in the local disaster risk management council to make sure that the needs of women are answered for. Like now, I always advocate, when you give relief goods, please include hygiene kits. Underwear is often taken for granted, and women's specific needs, especially when they are still in their reproductive ages. Can you imagine how they deal with that? Peace, of course, if that is the entry point that you want to put in. LGUs, uneven appreciation and motivation in resolving gendered power relations and other forms of exclusion. So we always say, always have a consultative participatory process, identify where the NGOs are, and involve them in their planning. In the Great Women Project, we also have been hearing the women say, wow, my LGU is now asking me to contribute what I think the plan should be in terms of economic development. I have a voice, breaking the silence. No? And of course, we try our best to implement the human rights-based approach, really emphasizing to government that you are the duty bearers, it is an obligation, you have to do this. And to the NGOs and communities, you have the right to claim these services. Increased demand for technical assistance, as I was saying earlier. Technical assistance on what is the Magna Carta, how do we do God planning, how do you gender mainstreaming. We do not have regional offices in PCW, nor do we have local presence. So we need to continuously strengthen our partnerships with DILG, whose officers are also, you know, overworked because all the other national government agencies want them to do the work for them, di ba? Children, lahat na, PWD, etc. The Regional Commission Banks of More Women recently met with the new chair by Jihan Mutin and the executive director. So we are planning how to help them become strengthened. Our chair, Remy, and us are currently working very closely with CHED, because the chair, of course, was the former chair, and the chair of Beijing Platform for Action, Tati Likwanan. So all of the regional offices have been gender sensitized, and we're a series of training for them to do gender analysis and planning, because we're asking them now to review all the GAD plans of state universities and colleges. I think there's a series of rollout training soon. Hindi na kami, we don't call TOT anymore, training of trainers, because not all will train. We're calling it training of technical advisors, TOTA, on gender analysis, so TOTAGA. Because the effort is not necessarily conduct another eco training, but really one-on-one by agency and mentoring and coaching, and how do you really analyze the programs, no? Technical advisors. Okay, and other key agencies and CSOs. I talked about the gender resource pool. This will eventually be online, where if you are a gender expert, you can put your CV online and identify what your expertise are, so that when there are demands, we can just refer you to them. And then, of course, full disclosure of fees or standardization of fees. I guess this is very, very difficult discussion, but then, you know, sometimes they say, kasi go to this, and they say, masyado siyang mahal, so they go back to us. But I don't have people anymore, di ba? So it's really a very big challenge to respond to. And then retooling and building the capacities of sectoral experts. So that's what we're saying now. We can have gender experts, but I think the better way to go is identify where are the economists, where are the environment experts, peace experts, and then orient them or capacitate them on the gender lens, and then it's easier now to deploy them to the various sectors. Because we, as gender experts, cannot learn all the sectors. No? Like public works, si Soc Reyes yon. Water, si Soc Reyes din yon. Ganon. And then we need to map the situation of women's empowerment and gender clarity through sustainable mechanisms and strategies that ensure inclusivity rather, and accountability. So again, overemphasizing participatory planning, making the links vertically and horizontally by sector, ensuring that we have the information, sex disaggregated data, assessments and lessons, convergence strategies for better impact, and policy reviews. The weakest really is monitoring and evaluation. We are now strengthening our monitoring and evaluation system. We're going to do a baseline study soon, overdue, based on Magna Carta data, and then develop our own gender and development database. And in M&E, we're seeking to have more partners as well. Like the NAPSI Women's Basic Sectoral Council has said that we would like to be part of the teams who would be monitoring, helping monitoring these different issues. I think that's the last slide. Of course, we're doing this because we also want to show at the end of this person's term, the president, he had included in his social contract with the Filipino people, social contract number 13, which says from a lack of concern for gender disparities and shortfalls to the promotion of equal gender opportunity in all spheres of public policies. And no, we didn't really feed it. I don't know where it came from, but when it came out, honestly, some NGO probably or some other person or woman around the campaign period fed this to them. It didn't come from us. Yon. So I hope all of us can work together, at least us here in the Philippines, can work together to make sure that the Magna Carta of Women, which is our national translation of CEDAW, actually gets implemented. Daghang salamat sa inyong lahat.
Just to stand and stretch a leg before we go. We'll have a 3-minute break and then we go to Supatra. I think people are going to the bathroom just to stand.
So pretty in the sky are also on the faces of the people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying how do you do, but they're really saying I love you. I see trees that are green and red roses too. I watch them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, oh, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of the people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying how do you do.
May pila sa